Welcome to the October 2024 LAPPG meeting. It's so great to have you all here. I want to welcome the SGO team. They're here with us tonight for No Two Workflows Are the Same, the power of flexible no-code automation with Mistika Workflows. We have Adrián González, who is the creative solutions architect at SGO. And for the past 11 years, he has been working with SGO as a demo artist, training mentor, and product manager. And along with Adrián, we also have Managing Director Geoff Mills, and we have Marketing Manager Eva Panjan here. So welcome, everybody. Hi. Thank you all for being up so late with us. We appreciate it. Our international, we have England and Spain. Is that who's represented?
That's correct.
In LA over here. Perfect. Well, I am going to, first of all, welcome back. It's fantastic to have you all. I'm so excited for this. I know we have a lot of people that have been anxiously awaiting this presentation. I'm going to turn it over to you, Geoff. And then at the end, just make sure everybody to put your questions in the Q&A box so we can answer them at the end.
Thanks, Wendy, and thanks to everyone for joining the session. It's always a pleasure to be part of the LAPPG sessions, and we wanted to show you something special and something that I think is a bit game-changing. I think hopefully some of you have already heard about Mistika Workflows, but we really are getting a lot of traction with this product. And I think with the industry being in somewhat of a turmoil at the moment, and probably will be for some time, I think managing sort of media, orchestrating your media, and automating pipelines is definitely something that a lot of people are looking to sort of do and make things much more efficient during these sort of difficult times. And Mistika Workflows really does give you the opportunity to do this without having to have any sort of expertise in coding. And it's all sort of node-based, and Adrián will take you through that as well. The great thing about this product is that no matter what solutions you're using, you can use Mistika Workflows. And we have lots of different customers around the world who've already started to integrate Mistika Workflows into their pipelines. Here's a little selection of some of them from around the world. We've got some ATP uploading content to YouTube. We've got the Look in the UK. We've got a fully automated VFX pause pipeline. Even Pixar are using it. We've got marketing architects using it as well in the US for doing huge amounts of localization, all automated, all without having to sort of human intervention, and a very, very dependable solution. The other key thing that I would want to just mention about what we're going to show you is this product is really, really cost effective as well. So it's about $120 on subscription a month. So everyone really, should be able to access this solution. And the other key thing with Mistika Workflows is about integrations. And again, Adrián will show you some of this in the sort of demonstration, but clearly having access into different sort of applications through different APIs. We're even doing some stuff with AI as well, is a key part of what we're doing here. And this list is obviously growing all the time. So I hope you're going to like it. To be honest, everyone who seems to see Mistika Workflows really loves it. We hope you do too. And we hope you want to give it a try after the demo. So I'll hand you over to Adrián. He'll hopefully show you something fabulous.
Hey, thank you, Geoff. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this presentation about Mistika Workflows. Today, we're going to talk about automation. So I will guide you here with a very quick, basically, I will build a very quick workflow here just to show how is the logic behind Mistika Workflows. So the interface is quite easy to follow. We have a big canvas here in the center where we can just, build our workflows. This canvas here is a node graph editor, so I can just basically build my pipeline or my workflows based on nodes, and those nodes or functionalities are the ones that we have in here in my left. So we have inputs, tasks, and outputs. Quite simple. Here we have a profile. This is something new that we are basically building because depending on on your profile or your user profile, you can just select one of those to basically filter the list of those nodes and just remove the ones that you don't need. Because as you will see during this presentation, we have a lot of functionality already integrated here in Mistika Workflows. So let's build something really simple just to make explain the logic of Mistika Workflows. So here, if we take a look to the inputs, we can start our workflow with many options. We already have integration with multiple platforms, as Geoff mentioned. We have Aspera, Signian, AWS, Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive. For the output, we will see that we have Frame.io, for communications, Slack. So we have many integrations here. For this quick example, I will start with probably the easiest way to start a workflow, which is a watch folder. So I can just define here my file path location in my, in my storage or in my system here, my local system, or it can be, another location if you want. So every time that a user copy or move something to this watch folder, we will automatically do something. Let's say that we want to make like a transcoding workflow, an automatic transcoding workflow. So we can just create, for example, some EXR sequences with those with that media. So we can just connect the EXR sequences here. Let's create some progress renders as well. We, by the way, support official Apple Progress codec on Windows, Mac, and Linux. We have support for Mistika Workflows for the 3 operating systems, and Progress is supported in all of them. And we can even concatenate, for example, multiple renders in this case, or tasks, like, for example, make a render of 8264, because maybe I want a simpler, easier to share format after all this process. All right, so if we take a look to one of those rendering nodes, we have here the basic settings. Obviously, we have for transcoding, we can change the codec, we can change the resolution, the frame rate, the time code, etc. Those basic things that you can expect from a transcoding system. But Mistika Workflows goes beyond that, and we have a lot of advanced functionality here that can be really useful depending on the pipeline. So, for example, we can manage the metadata and decide what to do with that metadata. Normally, we write that metadata internally in the clips, but you can export the metadata as a sidecar file, for example, using the XMP, which is the Adobe format. Again, another example of integration. Or CSV, which we use the same CSV structure of DaVinci Resolve. So you can basically save the metadata as a CSV file here and import that metadata later in DaVinci Resolve if you need it. We can make color space transformations. We integrate with ACES. At the moment, we have the latest version of ACES here integrated. We can apply Lab3Ds. We can burn in some information like the time code or the clip name, etc., etc. So we have some advanced functionalities on all those render nodes. Now, let's say that once we have those clips rendered, we want to send those renders or upload those renders through different platforms. So, for example, let's say that we want to send those EXR sequences through Aspera. So we can just put here the Aspera client at the end of that branch of my pipeline. Progress, maybe I want to send it through Frame.io because I want to review those contents, before deciding anything. Or for 8264, let's say that I want to use Vimeo to share it with my final customer. I don't know, just as an example, right? So these are like basically my 3 delivery platforms that I'm using here for this workflow. And another key aspect, of course, is notifications. So let's say that after sending those files to Aspera, I want to send an email to my to my VFX department. Let's say that I'm sending those files to my VFX department. So we can take the name from this EXR render, and with this the small yellow triangles, we can decide the order of the process. So first we will send the content to Aspera, then we will send the email. We will do the same thing here from Frame.io, but instead of using email, let's say that I want to send a message to Slack because I want to basically send that notification to the whole review team, my QC team. And maybe for after updating that footage to Vimeo, I want to send just a simple WhatsApp, which I think is not so important in America, but it is in Europe. So I will use that as another example of integration. All right, so this is a pretty simple workflow, but it's quite interesting because it covers some of the things that we can do with Mistika Workflows. We have an input node in here that will trigger automatically this workflow. Then we have several transcoding or rendering nodes. And then we have different delivery platforms, Aspera, Frame.io, and Vimeo. And finally, some notifications. And the great thing is that every time that a user copy or move something into this watch folder, the whole workflow will be triggered and everything will be done automatically without any kind of human intervention. Of course, in order to guarantee that the result is good for this workflow or any workflow, we need to basically track and check that the whole workflow is well configured. And this is one of the key points of Mistika Workflows. It tries to avoid as much as possible human mistakes. So even before running this workflow, as you can see on top of those nodes, we have a color dot in here. If it's green, that means that the node is ready to be used. So we can just, add this to the my render queue in here. But if I have something in orange, the system is telling me that something is it needs to be configured before being able to use it. And Mistika Workflows is very strict in this aspect. So if you don't have all the nodes in green, you won't be able to add this workflow to your render queue, and you won't be able to run it. So in that way, it forces you somehow to check that all the nodes are correctly configured. So in order to see what is missing, for example, in this frame IO node, I can just go here to my validation inspector panel, and I can just select the node, and it will tell me exactly what is missing in that specific node. So I can just, click on those nodes that are not in green, just to know exactly what is missing in those nodes, right? Once the workflow everything is in green, I will bypass those nodes instead of configure all of them just to go a bit faster. So yeah, I can just bypass those nodes. And this add to queue button is enabled, so I now can include this workflow into my render queue. So I can include it here. So once the workflow is running, the system will tell me exactly what is happening during the process with my render log panel here. So it will tell me exactly what it's doing with every single file that is copied here into this watch folder. So it will tell me if, for example, the file is color space transformed, if the resolution is changed, if now it's being rendered to ProRes, for example, if the file is uploaded to Frame.io, if it will tell me exactly what is happening in every single step of the process. This render log is not only available here; it's written in a text file in your system, so you can check it later if you want. Even weeks later if you want, just to check the result of that workflow. And you can even connect this render log information with, those log tracking applications, external log tracking applications. We have some documentation about it in our website by using a New Relic as an example. We can connect with any log tracking application as long as they have some kind of Python or API connection. So you can have access to that render log from your mobile phone or an iPad or an external laptop or whatever. So this is a perfect solution to put Mistika Workflows in a server or even in different machines, because we have support for render farms. And you can just check with an external system, again, as a laptop or an iPad or whatever, what is going on in that render farm or in that server. All right. So again, this is just a quick example about what you can do. As you can see, the software is very visual. I mean, the node graph is always telling you what is happening with colors. It's easy to identify those nodes. Something that we are improving in this area is a new feature or a recent feature of the latest versions of Mistika Workflows, is the inclusion of templates here, because sometimes it's a bit scary, to open Mistika Workflows and see this list of nodes, and you won't probably know what to do with them. So we have here a template list, and this template list is growing every day. So it's as simple as, let's say that you don't know how to make a ACES color pipeline in Mistika Workflows. Well, you can just go to color management, and here you have options for ACES. So ACES basic workflow, we can just double click on it, and then you will have, a template here with all the information that you need in order to understand how the ACES workflow works on Mistika Workflow. You can copy these nodes or these functionalities, and you can just move them to your own workflow to make them work. Okay, so as you can see, we have many templates here. Color management, we have for integration like Level Labs, for filtering media, etc. So again, many options here for the templates. All right, so in this first workflow that I built, I basically managing everything with simple files. So to copy a simple file here in this watch folder, and then the workflow is triggered and just start the workflow. But the input can be something more advanced than that. We can connect with databases. We can connect with CSV files, JSON files, etc. And this is one of the most recent integrations that we're developing. You can connect directly to DaVinci Resolve. So you can send your contents from the DaVinci Resolve timeline into Mistika Workflows to automate a process. In this particular case, we're going to show how I can send this Resolve timeline into Mistika Workflows to make a VFX pool pipeline, an automated VFX pool pipeline. So I will open here the workflow that I have prepared for this. All right, and I will go first to DaVinci Resolve to explain the scenario. So let's say that we have a timeline here with multiple shots. This is basically a normal editing. Of course, it's a very small one, just for this demo, but it's a normal editing with a combination on non-VFX and VFX shots. The ones that are VFX shots are the ones that are marked with a yellow marker here. And this yellow marker contains basically the VFX name, as you can see in there. Not only that, if we take a look to the tracks, the first track is the plate, and the second track is the layer 001. So you can basically put in different tracks the different layers that are involved in the composition of this specific shot. We have the references as well in here that comes from editorial. We can use it in Mistika Workflows. We won't use it in this specific scenario, but you can use it as well because we can send that information as well to Mistika Workflows. And, we have here all the information. Oh, and one important thing, all those shots have already CDL information applied. So we have some color information applied in here that we want to extract to send it to the compositor. So how can we send this content into Mistika Workflows without creating, intermediate files or intermediate renders? Just send the content directly from the timeline to Mistika Workflow. Well, it's as simple as going here to the workspace, scripts, and now we have and deliver a new integration called Mistika Workflows Launcher. This is still in beta. That's the reason why it says 09, but it's close to be released. We click on it, and this window pop-ups. So from here, we can select the workflow that we want to use with this timeline. So in this particular case, I will navigate through my workflow here. And this basically will show me like a quick overview about the workflows or sub-workflows, because we will talk about that now. This pipeline is divided in multiple workflows. I have here multiple workflows that I will explain. So we have a quick overview about those workflows here. The nodes that are being used in those workflows, the file paths. So it's a quick way to identify and say, okay, this is the right workflow for this timeline. Then you can send this job by just clicking here in OK. You can run this in a silent mode or headless mode, so you don't need to have Mistika Workflows open. Obviously, I will have it open here just to explain the functionalities of those nodes, but you can run it without open the interface. So yeah, it's as simple as that. You basically select your workflow and you just click OK. So once we basically send those contents to Mistika Workflow, now, how can we read those contents from DaVinci Resolve into Mistika Workflows? Well, the connection point in here is a watch folder, but this watch folder is not reading media files because, of course, our starting point is a timeline here in Resolve. So what we do basically is create a JSON file with all the information of the timeline. And we have a reader node that is basically a Resolve Assist node that basically reads the content from the timeline of Resolve, and we can extract the information that we need to run this workflow automatically. So here we can decide, for example, which tracks we want to process. So for example, if we don't want to process the track 4, which is our reference, it's as simple as just going here and just delete the comma 4. So you can just define the range of tracks or just independent tracks separated by commas. We can export the markers from the timeline, which is something that we want because the VFX name is quite important in this particular workflow, because we will use that name to create the EXR sequences that we want to send to the VFX department. And then later we have more advanced options with the markers. Like, for example, we are able to assign markers to different tracks. This is something really interesting because let's say that, for example, you have like in the same position in time, you have multiple tracks, and you want to assign different color markers to independent tracks. So you can do that by going here and say, okay, the yellow marker is assigned to the track 1, the blue marker is assigned to the track 2. So in that way, you can make a more advanced associations between markers and tracks. Not only that, you can even include some suffix for one specific track. So in that way, I will use this same VFX name for these two clips, the plate and the layer. But for the track 2, I will add at the end of this name this one here, I will add the layer 001. So in that way, I will have the same number for the VFX, but with some extra addition, just to let me know that, okay, this is the layer, and the original shot was, or the first track is the original plate, right? Okay, so with that information, we can send those contents into different tasks in here. So the first task is extracting the CDL information, because here basically we're getting the information of the color information from Resolve, or the CDL information from Resolve, and we are able to extract that information and create CDL files and save those CDL files in a specific location that we define in here. In order to name those CDLs correctly, we can just get the name from the yellow marker, because again, that was the marker that contains the VFX name. Remember that this pipeline is focused on the VFX shots. We don't want to extract all the information for my whole timeline. I just want to extract the information for the shots that has, in this particular case, a yellow marker assigned to it. So in that way, I will filter my timeline. I won't send the whole timeline, just only the VFX shots. The second task in here creates basically VFX timelines or VFX CDLs. This is quite important because once we create those EXR sequences and those progress files, which are basically my reference, these EXR sequences will have basically the VFX name that I assign in here in the yellow marker. So they are not going to share anything else with the original media. Here we have in the timeline my original media. So basically I have the original clip name from the camera. Once I create those EXR sequences, I basically need a new EDL that basically use those names. So I'm able to conform with these clips that I'm going to create here. So what we're doing here is basically extracting the timecode information from our Resolve timeline, and we basically use the VFX name to be able to conform with the clips that we're going to create in this workflow. And the last task in here, and the most important one, is the one that basically gets the timecode information from Resolve timeline. It takes the file path to the media because, of course, Resolve has that information. And then we basically create a list of clips where we add some handles, like 5 frames at the beginning and at the end. So we end with a list of clip trim with a 5 frames handle, and we send that information into a couple of tasks in here, or render nodes. The first one is this EXR sequence. So in the EXR sequence, we can just name those EXR sequences by using any mark in here. I made a mistake in here. This should be the mark yellow. Well, I can use that just to show that, of course, we have a big list of dynamic tokens to name things dynamically based on input metadata. As you can see, the list is quite extensive. In this particular case, I want to use the marked yellow because it's the one that contains the VFX name for my sequences. I will use the same thing here for my folders. So you can use those dynamic tokens not only for media naming, but for folders or subfolders as well. So that's a quite interesting feature. I'm just keeping, the original resolution and everything. I'm not doing anything other than just, changing the first frame number to 1001 because it's the standard way to go. And the unit color, I basically transform the color space of the input media into ACES linear because, again, is the standard way to go with EXR sequences. The second delivery here are basically my reference. So the compositor has a reference for their shots. So here, in order to create the reference, I need to basically transform from the input media to Rec 709 because Rec 709 at the end is the most standard color space for checking references. And not only that, we want to apply the CDL information that we have in Resolve timeline into every single shot in here. So we're going to develop here like a color pipeline. We have a unique color node to transform from the input color space. I'm working here with Log-C3 and Alexa with Gamut. And I go to AP1 and ACCCP. Then I apply the CDL information that basically travels across the whole pipeline because we have extracted that information with our Resolve Assist node. And then we make the final transformation to Rec 709 as my output color space for my references. Finally, here in my reference file, I will basically change again this to mark yellow, just to use again the VFX name that is containing the yellow marker. Here in the transcoding, we're changing the resolution to HD to work with a lightweight clips, but other than that is quite similar to the previous render. That's it. Now, again, just summarizing this, this workflow creates the content for the VFX for the compositor, and everything starts with the result timeline. So again, keep in mind that we're not making any kind of intermediate render here or EDLs or anything. We're using the official API of Resolve to connect directly to the timeline, extract information from there. With that information, we can run and automate this whole process of creating the CDL files, EDLs for the VFX shots, and the VFX shots in EXR and the reference in progress. So this is probably the most important workflow in the whole VFX pipeline because it's the one that creates the content. Then we have another workflow here that basically is how can we integrate with a database. In this case, we're using ShotGrid as an example, although I think now they changed the name. We need to probably rename those nodes with the new name, but you understand what I mean with ShotGrid. So basically what we can do in here is just take the output of the previous workflow and use that output to update my database in ShotGrid. So in order to basically make this process automatically, we need to keep a special attention to the name convention of my files. So in every single node in Mistika Workflows, we have a name convention field, like the one that I have in here, where I can define how is the structure of the name of my files of my media here. If we take a look to the VFX name convention that we're using here, this is quite arbitrary, is the one that we're using for this presentation, but basically we're dividing this name in project, which is the one that says SGO, then we have episode number, sequence, and shot. So we're telling the system here that we're basically using that structure, project underscore episode number underscore sequence underscore shot. And finally, we have the process part. Remember when we say that you can add some suffix at the end of one of the trackers, like layer 001, that's what we basically are considering like the process part of the name. So it is giving us a little bit of extra information about that specific clip, right? So based on that name convention, we can basically transform the name into metadata because it's in order to use that information, we need to transform it into metadata. So we have this node for that. And then we go to ShotGrid. The first node basically connects to the project that we have in ShotGrid to, or the project that we're using for this specific delivery. Then we go to the next step, which is creating the sequence. And as you can see, for creating the sequence, we're using those dynamic tokens that we basically define at the beginning of this workflow. Same thing once we create the shots. So we're using those dynamic tokens. So in that way, those sequences and shots, those elements are created automatically in my database. For the moment, I'm not uploading anything. I'm just creating elements in my table and my tables in ShotGrid. And the last step is basically creating the different versions inside the different shots. And for this last step, we are basically uploading my reference files, the ones that I created here, as an attachment or as a thumbnail. Okay, so in case that, or you can leave it disabled if you don't want to upload anything, but you have these two options. So this is an example of how can we basically connect two workflows between each other. So the output of the first workflow is the input of the next one. In this case, we're not using any watch folder or anything here. We're using a simple folder because maybe between workflows, you want to have some kind of human intervention point just to check the result of this first workflow before running the second one. And then finally, we have another workflow here that is quite interesting because it shows one of the most impressive capabilities of Mistika Workflows, which is the classifier. So this workflow is based on the same philosophy of the previous one. So it's based on the name convention. So we can identify here how is the name convention of my shots, like I did in the previous one. But in this particular case, I'm dividing the name in two blocks, like base name and underscore process. So we're going to focus on the last part that says process. So now we transform that name into metadata. And once something is metadata, we can classify that metadata to do something based on that metadata. The best way to understand this is just loading a new classified metadata node. So this node is quite powerful because it allows you to filter any input based on any metadata criteria. So for example, if you go here to presets, you can just go to frame rate. So you can just classify any input based on frame rate and do something different depending on the frame rate of the files. And you can just go to resolution, or you can just use the custom option and just add in here anything you want, like for example, color space, lens type, camera type, I don't know, anything really, aspect ratio, everything can be used in here in order to classify your input and do something different with that media based on that metadata. In this particular case, we're using the last part of the name, what we call process. So we are basically saying the system, if the last part of the name of my files starts with or contains or ends with, or there is an exact match with the words layer, reference, EDL markers, VFX cuts, CDL, whatever, do something with those files. In this particular case, what we are doing is basically assign a new name convention and just move those files to different locations in my local storage. And as you can see, we're using those dynamic tokens to create those folders and subfolders dynamically based on those names. So in that way, you can organize and classify all your footage by just filtering the name of those shots. So let's say that you want to filter and classify based on project or episode number or sequence or whatever. You can just use the classifier in order to do that. We can use this classifier for many things. And I have here another workflow that is quite interesting, and it shows another input. Instead of using media or result, like in this case, we're going to use a simple CSV file, which is something that we are seeing every day that more people is using. So let me open here a really interesting workflow. This is a real case scenario that we developed for a Spanish company. So I have this here. 1 second, there you go. So I will open this in here. Okay, so I will explain this pretty quick. I will explain the problem for this company. So we're talking here about a small, medium Spanish company, but they deliver to multiple platforms. They deliver to, the typical one, Netflix, Amazon, etc. But they deliver as well to some Latin American and Spanish platforms. So at the end, they have to deliver to about 15 platforms, and they are doing all this job manually. So they ask us how can we automate this whole process. So the proposal was, okay, let's use a CSV file, because the CSV is quite simple to manage, and based on that CSV, we can manage all the deliveries automatically. So if we take a look to the CSV, and I have this here, it's quite simple. Let me open it. With any Excel or spreadsheet software. All right. So basically, what they have is in the first column they define the master file. So they basically create the master files from any finishing software. They use Mistika Boutique for that, but it doesn't really matter. You can use Resolve-based, Light, or whatever. You create your master file in here, and then in the next columns they have like the different platforms, like a Contra Plus, Mitele, Samsung, and Amazon. And all they have to do is if this content goes to this platform or not. So they just need to put no or yes, as simple as that. So if we take a look to the workflow here, they connect the CSV to a CSV reader node. And here you can define your own tokens. So basically, we're defining here that the column T1, because T0 is the first column, is my master media. So T1 is this platform, T2 is Mitele, column in this case 3 is Samsung, column 4 is Samsung. Okay, so now we're using the same classifier that we showed in the previous workflow, but here basically we are filtering based on those columns. So if for example, let's go to the Samsung one. If in the column Samsung there is a yes, do something with that media. We don't want to duplicate the media or copy the media or move the media to any location. We just want to make things as simple as possible. So we basically create a link to that media. And this link is basically placed in a sub workflow, in this case, the Samsung workflow. That is a watch folder that basically will trigger, that link will trigger the workflow of delivering to Samsung. So basically, we assign the name convention for Samsung delivery based on the standards for Samsung. Then we render the content to H.264. We make the audio channels routing, and first we extract the audio channels of the master file and then reroute those audio channels in a stereo pair, and then we make the final package to create that content to deliver it to Samsung. Same thing with Amazon, for example. So they have like sub workflows per platform, and everything is managed with a simple CSV file where they just need to put, okay, this is my master file, go to this platform. That's it. They don't need to worry about anything else, because Mistika Workflows is doing everything in background automatically. These are just examples of what we can do with Mistika Workflows. It's so flexible, so extensive. You can just automate anything, especially now that we are integrated with many platforms. So yeah, I think this is just a quick overview again. I think you should try it, because I think you will find a place for Mistika Workflows in your pipeline, because again, you will be able to automate everything and make your pipeline much more efficient. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to do it, or go to our website and just check the information in there.
So we have a question from Ramiro. So he's asking about if a license include any hours for consulting on a workflow. He feels that it looks complicated to set up for without having any errors for a new user.
Yeah, so basically our approach is, especially with new users, is that we help you with the first step, like implementing the first workflows. Of course, this is really, really complex, so we need to adapt it to your pipeline or even make some kind of custom development. That's another kind of discussion. But if it's something relatively simple, we help you to integrate Mistika Workflows in your pipeline to make it work as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think it's also very important to mention that we have our support very responsive. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. I think the other thing to mention is that actually inbuilt into the application, there's help for all the different nodes. So that's online help there as well. So there's extensive documentation around what the nodes do, lots of tutorials as well. But of course, yeah, we're always going to be happy to help customers get the integrations done and get up and running with Mistika Workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think next one is for you, Geoff, actually. Dustin is asking about the enterprise licenses.
Yes, I mean, when you buy the licenses through the SGO shop, they're actually per seat or per sort of system you're using them for. Obviously, if you want to have multiple licenses, that's a conversation with me. So that's an easy one to answer, I think. Yes, you can just message me directly and we can have that conversation.
Perfect. So Kevin would like to know if the workflow must be pre-planned before the shoot.
What
would you say?
Ideally, yes, but you can always build a workflow at any moment in the production. That's something that is quite common. Like you suddenly realize that you need to make up hundreds of deliveries and you want to implement something automatic, and you just do it and adapt it to your media. You don't need to basically have everything prepared beforehand. You can just do it at any moment.
Perfect. Scott is very interested in trying it out. Of course, we want you to try it out, Scott. So you can just start with downloading the evaluation version from our website. It's free of charge. And if you need any help setting up the workflow, just shoot us a message through support or however you feel comfortable, and we'll be happy to help. So Dustin's motto is fix it in pre. So I think it should be for everyone. So that's a good mentality. Okay, so the next one is from Mario. He's asking about the example with Resolve. So could the color space of the clips be automated? If an independent clip has a different IDT, it could be taken automatically, or another different process would have to be set up.
And so that depends on basically the API, the API accessibility from Resolve. We are still exploring it. We haven't explored the whole possibilities of the API. So as long as we have access through the official API, we will be able to do it. If not, we will be limited by that issue. But anyway, we can just take a look to see if we can automate that part as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the next one is from Gennady. He would like to know about, they have a Resolve, but want to use another station for processing material from Resolve. So is that possible with one license with Mistika Workflows?
Yeah, you can send jobs from Resolve that is in one system to Mistika Workflows that is in another system, as long as you have some kind of connection between those systems, like a common storage or a cloud point or whatever, that will work.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So Kevin is asking about the integration with Media Composer.
Right. We don't have yet integration through the API of Media Composer. We, of course, have integration with AAF and common, interchange format like that one. We support the official Avid codecs for DNX and DNX HR, etc., etc. But we still don't have the API connected with workflows, but it will come at some point in the future.
Okay, the next one is from Kenny. He would like to know if there's any plan to integrate an animation template and or work with Toon Boom Storyboard Pro and Toon Boom Harmony files.
To be honest, we have never looked into this for this integration, but I take note of those just to see what we can do about it. Yeah.
Write it down, Adrian. I'm looking at you.
I'm doing it.
Okay, so the next question is about the platform operating system limitations. Which has most performance?
Right. So at this moment, we are normally used to work on Windows and Linux with NVIDIA video boards. That's at this moment the version that works better. We are migrating the software to Metal and Apple Silicon in the next few months. And once we have it, we will be able to compare performance. But in our experience for the moment, I would say like Windows and Linux with an NVIDIA GPU.
Okay, perfect. Integration with render farms from Dustin.
Yeah, so basically we integrate with Deadline, which is probably the best the recommendation for complex scenarios or for complex infrastructures. We as well integrate with SMETS, which we normally recommend when you have like 4 or 5 licenses or 4 or 5 systems, like a more simpler approach. So yeah, we have those 2 render farms already integrated.
Wonderful. How about any forthcoming support for Apple's new MVHEVC format?
We are very interested on that because of the Apple Vision Pro. For sure, that I think this will come mostly for free on Mac systems once we have the Apple the Metal support, because we can just use the internal codec of the operating system. We need to check yet with Windows and Linux because I'm not sure if the codec has been supported in those operating systems. If it is, we will integrate it as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So Scott is saying that most of his clients need media on their private servers. So how does this work with different private media storage systems like Nexus or other private access storage servers?
Okay, this one is probably more for our technical department. I know for sure that we have customers in Japan using Nexus, and they are using it without any kind of problem. But I'm not sure if I'm able to answer that question from the technical point of view. There are probably some details that we need to cover, and I don't know them specifically. But yeah, I'm quite sure that we have a couple of customers in Japan using it with Nexus.
Scott, if you're interested in how it's working, we're happy to kind of dig into that topic with our friends from Japan and let you know how that works. Next one is from Kevin. So Mistika is targeted basically for Adobe and Resolve, right?
Not really. We are trying to be as agnostic as possible. We have Resolve integration and Adobe integration just because there are many people using them. So it just makes sense to integrate with those systems because it opens many doors for us as well. But we are not close to any kind of integration. If there is other software that can be interesting, we will integrate it as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So next one is actually a task for myself and Adrian, a list of available integrations. It's true, it's not up on the website yet. We've been doing a complete revamp of the website of Mistika Workflows, and that one's stuck a little bit behind. I wouldn't say it is Adrian's fault, but it is. So, okay, next one from next one is from Kevin. Do you think Mistika could replace the assistant editor's job, or it makes their work easier?
For sure, making the work easier. Replacing is always a big word in this case because it depends on your needs. So I'm probably, I don't know, probably you have like a specific need in your pipeline that requires someone human basically managing that. In other scenarios, maybe it can be a replace, of course, but of course, make the job easier for everyone, really.
I would say that it actually lets the creatives focus on other more important tasks rather than replacing it. Does this need internet to access to run?
No, not really. We use internet for activating the license, but then we have as well another system for activating offline. Once the license is active, you can just work with the system offline. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as a workflow designer, can I do deep workflow design, but the end users have limited ability to edit their workflow options? This one is good. I like this one.
Yeah, so, this one depends. So something that I didn't mention, and I totally forget about it. The whole Mistika Workflows software is Python scriptable. Okay, so I didn't show that, but there is a Python node where you can add your own script functionalities and your own, and create your own nodes in Mistika Workflows. Everything that is designed by Python, you can, for example, like remove access to some parameters or things like that. So if you basically develop those nodes and those functionalities, you have full control of what you want to expose to the final user or not. The general nodes that we have developed, there is no way for the moment to filter the parameters. You can lock those nodes, but locking means that you cannot change anything. So it's probably not the approach that you mentioned. So again, it depends. If you are creating your own nodes, you have full control of that. If it's our own nodes, for the moment, the user will have access to edit that option.
Wonderful. So, Wendy, I think we need to wrap up just maybe to quickly answer Quinn's last message because it's just about the subscription. So, yes, we offer subscription-based products. So, monthly, annual, whichever works best for you. Sorry, that was the last one.
Fantastic. So what is the best email address for people if they want to follow up on a question?
I think probably best is just to send us an email to marketing@sgo.es. I'll just type it in the chat box because I will see it. So I'll make sure that it reaches the right person.
That's great.
There you go.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you to everybody who asked questions. They were great questions. I think we made you guys work, and it's really late where you are. So I think you're ready for a good night of sleeping ahead. And anything, last words, anybody from SGO that you want to share with the group?
I'd just like to say thanks, obviously, for everyone for attending. I think actually we had a full house and we kept everyone's attention. So I think that was good. And honestly, like Adrian said, please give it a try. You can download a free trial. You won't be disappointed. It really is a bit of game-changing software. We have a lot of very happy customers using it. And I hope people get the chance to experience what they are too.
Very cool. Well, thank you, everybody, so much, Adrian and Eva and Geoff and the rest of the team at SGO. And thank you, everybody at home. And be sure to connect with us online through Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And a huge thank you to all of our partners, Platinum level AJ Video Systems, Gold level Adobe, Blackmagic Design, OWC, Zeiss, Frame.io, and silver level, we have Isotope, SGO, Avid, and Synology. So those are our partners. And huge thank you as well to our supporting media and community partners. It takes a village. We appreciate all of their support. We're going to also tell you a little bit about our YouTube channel. We have over 100 videos on there. The most recent one is AJ's post-production from anywhere. This is with Scott Maddox, who's the senior product manager for AJ Video Systems. And this particular episode or meeting was from June. It's our anniversary meeting. And Scott gave a phenomenal explanation of Thunderbolt and sort of how sort of the timeline and how it's changed and what we have now and what we're going to be getting in the future. So make sure if you have questions about anything like that, tune in because he really gives an excellent explanation. And that's on our YouTube page, and also subscribe when you're there. All right, everybody, take care. Have a good evening.
Thank you.